Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and a very warm welcome to the latest episode. It's Friday the 6th of March 2026. It is currently absolutely pouring down with rain. It's Friday evening and it has rained since about lunchtime, but we did have a really fantastic Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday was a bit iffy, but Tuesday and Wednesday were absolutely gorgeous and it was 100% like spring's here. I was very excited, and then today's been a little bit disappointing, but at least it's given everything a chance to dry out. Now, I'm pleased to tell you that my midlife crisis is temporarily averted now that I've actually started on my seed sowing, which I'm going to talk about later in the episode. So thank you for bearing with me in the last episode. I hope you're still here and you didn't give up all hope when you listened to me moaning just on about everything. But after the last episode, I did go off and make mayonnaise. I was talking about that, and it was extremely successful. It was so delicious and so easy to do. And I've always been frightened of making mayonnaise because I'd heard it was just really difficult and it curdles and it's really complicated. And it turns out to be very, very easy to do. Now, the first batch I made after I was speaking to you, I actually had to use olive oil because that's the only oil I had in the house. And the downside to that was that it made the mayonnaise just taste very olive oily, and that wasn't quite what I was after. So I've been out and bought some rapeseed oil. I love rapeseed oil actually. I've had it for years. I just didn't have, obviously hadn't restocked. And I have an organic cold pressed one that I really, really like. And it has the benefit of not being particularly fragrant, or you can't really taste anything. And so my second batch of mayonnaise was absolutely drop dead gorgeous, and I did the whole lot in one go. But it's not as cheap as I thought. Obviously, I should have thought because oil is expensive. So it actually makes Hellman's seem quite reasonable. Anyway, if you haven't made mayonnaise before, I highly recommend you give it a go. It's fantastic. So, what's new on the plot? Let me tell you. I have been planting out some more peonies. Now, these are ones that I've decided to dig up from my garden and actually take them up to the plot. I've already taken a whole load up, but I had 3 left that were in a bit of a tricky spot and I wanted them moved. And the reason I want them moved is I made the mistake of planting them alongside my greenhouse. And 2 things went a bit wrong with that. One is that some other trees that I've put in have grown over and that it's a little bit shady now. And the other is that when the rain hits the greenhouse, it flows straight off and pours onto this bed. And they'd kind of got a bit waterlogged and they just didn't seem as happy as I know they should be. And last year, Bowl of Beauty didn't even bother to flower. Now, that's because we had an exceptionally wet winter last year. This one was also as wet, so I don't know what it's going to do. I should have dug them up in the autumn. It was very silly. I knew I was going to move them and then just didn't. So I've taken 3 pretty huge ones up to the field and then one really tiny one that I found in a pot. And I vaguely remember buying that just in a box from a shop. And it's one of those things like the box is really big and the bag is really big. And then you open it up and the corm inside, the tuber inside is absolutely tiny. And I'll probably be waiting a decade before that flowers, but never mind, you've got to start somewhere. So the tiny one has gone up and into the ground as well. And all the other peonies up there are doing really, really well, which is great. Now, the plugs are also getting away. These little tiny plugs that I bought last year from J. Parker's, they're doing very, very well. And also doing really well are the weeds, which have suddenly just gone absolutely mental in the last week. I do have a problem with creeping thistle. That is an issue for me on the plot anyway, and it always has been. And the annoying thing about creeping thistle is that you just never know where it's going to pop up. So it's a bit like whack-a-mole. You clear it out, everything looks amazing, and then literally 2 minutes later, it's come back up somewhere else. And short of, well, I don't think, well, there's no way. I was going to say short of clearing the entire plot and starting from scratch. That's not going to happen, given that I've just put all my perennials in. I think I'll just be battling that constantly. And they're real, they really go for it, the creeping thistles. They come up like in the middle of other plants. So like they do not care what is over them. They'll just come up regardless, which is quite admirable, to be honest. I've had another tulip disaster, which you'll be thinking, gosh, she can't possibly have any tulips left. And I have to say, I'll be I'll be lucky if I get two bunches at this point. So you'll know that I hid some in an igloo, a plastic chicken house, and nobody has managed to get in there. It's brilliant. So they're doing fine. And then I had a half an oil drum, like an oil barrel, which I put in Kylie's room, put the big crate in there, covered it in chicken wire again. And it's got chicken wire on the base, the sides, everything. And it has been untouched for, I would say, about a month, maybe. I'm not sure with the time. But anyway, long, long time. The tulips, they're all up. They're probably about, I don't know, 4, 5 inches above the ground, which is all very promising. And then I went in a couple of days ago and something had got in there and eaten probably about another 20. So that's very disappointing. They literally just snap all the top green growth off and the bulbs have just gone. So I've brought the crate out of there now because clearly it can't stay in there now that whoever's eating them knows where they are. So it's currently just on a plastic table outside Kylie's room. And the great thing about this table is that the legs kind of go underneath the tabletop. So even if somebody could get up the legs, which I don't think they can because they're very slippery, I don't think they'll be able to get on the tabletop. So the last couple of days, it's remained exactly the same because I just do not have anywhere else safe to put it. So, bit of a disappointment, but it's going to make the ones that I get incredibly special. I've also done a first cut of forsythia. I didn't realize I had so much on the plot already. It was here before I got hold of the plot, and I just sort of, it's in a corner where I don't really ever go. And it's never really been on my radar. And I realized the other day, so I've been down and done a cut from it. I haven't actually told any florists I have it available yet, which is huge, obviously, marketing and sales oversight. But I thought I'm going to make myself an arrangement, which is not the point of running a cut flower business, but I just hadn't done anything creative. And if you've been listening to the last few episodes, I've been all over the place. And I thought I really, really want to just make something today and just kind of refocus on what I'm doing. And also just to slightly put off the seed starting because this is the first year, I think, of my life when I have really not wanted to get started on the seeds. Very unusual. I'm normally champing at the bit and I can't wait. And this year, for some reason, I just didn't want to get started. So I thought, I know, I'll make an arrangement instead. So I made what I think is a very pretty arrangement with some forsythia, with some daffs, some pussy willow, and this fantastic piece of contorted hazel, which I've talked about hazel being on one of my plant profiles. It's really super. And this piece is just one of these pieces that I keep reusing. So I'll put it in an arrangement and then take it out at the end and dry the stem off. And then it just goes again a few months later. It's very, very useful. It's almost like a horseshoe shape. It's like an incomplete horseshoe. And it's very dramatic, very lovely. Now, what's going on in the greenhouse? Well, it's all kicking off in the greenhouse. I did clean it earlier in the week and it's looking very nice. Very Just makes such a huge difference to just cleaning it inside and out. And before I got out there to really polish it this afternoon, I put all the finishing touches to my spreadsheet. Again, what else can I do before I actually get out there and start sowing? And that has been incredibly useful because I've gone through and just revised all my starting dates and revised how many successions I'm going to do based on how many seeds I've got and how many plants I actually want to have. So, armed with that information, I could then go through all of my seed box and pull out the ones that I wanted and then get the ones I wanted for today and make a note of how many I actually had to sow today. So that when I ventured out to the greenhouse, I literally just had a handful of seed packets and there was a post it note on the front that said how many I needed to sow from that packet. And it made things incredibly quick and easy. So I'm still fully backing myself in terms of all of these spreadsheets and stuff. You might be groaning, thinking, oh, for goodness sake, Lydia, just sow stuff and get on with it. But I feel a little bit more confident knowing that I've got this spreadsheet that I can refer to. So I actually recorded my start and finish times. So I was able, when I came back in, to record what I'd actually sown. because there was a little bit of toing and froing when I was out there, and I didn't exactly do what I said I was going to do. I'll tell you about that in a second. But it just meant I could come back in, update the spreadsheet, put all the timings in, and then, of course, it just does all these calculations for me so that I know how much of my labor time has been spent on seed sowing today. And that's actually been, I can break that down per variety of annual that I've sown as well. So it gets really granular. It gets to the point where I know how much it has cost me in terms of labor to sow one seed, which is one plant. And I will do the calculations on the materials at a later date when I work out actually how much I have ended up using. That doesn't matter for the moment. What I wanted to get an idea of is how fast am I working and what sort of cost of production am I going to be looking at for these plants. Now, it was pouring rain this afternoon when I got round to going out to doing it, and I have a very small leak in the top of my greenhouse, which happens to be the exact place that I stand in order to work at my table. It was very annoying, and I tried to fix it, but I very nearly caused absolute havoc because I put my arm out of the little window, the roof vent, in order to do it, and the entire glass pane slipped out of its fixing and just slid down from the roof down the greenhouse, which I managed to catch it and prop it back up. But that could have ended extremely badly. And I'm still missing a panel for the end bit. I have absolutely no idea where that's gone. So I shall have to follow my own advice and go on that Perspex company and order a new one, assuming I can find where I did it from. Anyway, so there was a leak and it was right where I was working. So every so often there would be like a drip on my back, which wasn't very pleasant. My fault. I need to sort that out. And what I decided to do, I had told you that I was going to have a go with the floret seed sowing recipe, which she made available for people on the website. And then I did actually go around the shops. I went around the garden centre because I had some bits to get anyway. And I was looking at Fish, Blood and Bone and reading the packet and thinking, I really don't want to use this stuff. So I don't think, well, I'm not. I'm not going to be doing that whole experiment. I think it's going to take me everything I've got just to get my seeds done and germinated and transplanted and hardened off and out without messing around with the actual formula of the seed mix. Because as you know, I have this massive tub in my garden and I just reuse all of my compost from there. So I thought I'm trying to do lots of new things, and adding something else that I've seen off the Instagram to this mix is going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'm not going to do that. But what I have done this year is include coir in my seed sowing compost, just to see what that would be like. And the reason for that is because I'm trying soil blocking this year, also for the first year. So you see what I mean about trying to do so many different new things all in one year. And I think adding amendments would have just pushed it way over the top. So I bought a soil blocker from a company called, here it is, Ladbroke Soil Blockers. They're in the UK. They make the ones that, I think they make the ones that Lisa Mason Ziegler sells in the US. So they're a great company, family business. I'm not being paid to say this. This is just what I've learned from their website. And they make these very beautiful soil blockers. And it has 20 little blocks in each one. So that's, excuse me, that's what I wanted to go. And I ordered it ages ago. So one of the things, all the recipes when you're doing soil blocking, they all suggest using coir. So I thought, right, I'll get some. Well, let me tell you, it says on the packet of coir, it takes 5 minutes to soak. It does not take 5 minutes to soak. It takes a lot longer than that. And yeah, so I wish I'd known, because I could have gone out and done that hours ago while I was messing around on the spreadsheets. But anyway, managed to get the coir soil block to disintegrate and stir it all around. It's like making some kind of mud pie thing. It made me feel like 6 years old. Then I mixed um, some actual compost from my old plastic tub in the garden into it, which had some vermiculite already in it. So the ratios that I was kind of working to was 4 parts coir to 1 part compost, which is sort of an amalgamation of what I saw lots of different people doing. And that's what I went with. And apparently the trick with the soil blocking is that you've got to have the mixture quite wet so that it will actually stay in the soil blocker when you use it. And in principle, the thing was very easy to use, very straightforward to use, but for some reason, I couldn't get it to stay when I was just pushing it downwards. I don't know if you've ever used a soil blocker. Well, you have to sort of push it down into the compost mix. It's almost like a potato masher. Like you push it down, the compost gets pushed into all the little compartments, and then you lift it up. Um, you could wipe off the bits that are stuck around the edge, and then you use the handle. You do depress the handle, and then you get these little blocks just all fall out, and it's supposed to be amazing. And you end up with what looks like a bar of dairy milk. Only all the blocks are separate but close to each other. But I had enormous difficulty with that, so I ended up just using my hand and holding large clumps of the compost and just forcing that into the soil blocker, which is not a technique that I have seen anybody doing on the internet. And it's probably not right at all, but it worked for me because then I could make sure that each little compartment was actually full of compost. Because what happened a couple of times, I was trying to put like 2 blocks of 20 in a tray. The first block would come out absolutely perfect and it looked amazing. And then the second block, I depressed the lever and half the little compartments weren't full, or some of them just collapsed, or it was just a disaster. And I'd end up having to scrape that out and start again. So by the time I'd done that a few times, I thought, oh, this is just silly. I'll just fill it by hand and push it in a little bit so that I know that it's all in each individual compartment, but not pushed as in like compressed, just filled basically. But the whole thing was incredibly messy, like so much mess, so much mess. I don't remember having this much mess before. And I could fill my seed trays or those recycled bedding plant trays incredibly quickly, really quickly, super quick actually, without any mess or fuss whatsoever. So I really hope that the soil blocking is a good technique because if it isn't, then I would really quickly drop it and go back to just filling up the trays like I used to do it. But on the plus side, by doing the soil blocking thing, it hardly takes up any space in the greenhouse, which is amazing. So I did 235 seeds today, and you wouldn't even know. It just takes up like a tiny, tiny area. Whereas if I'd put them all in the compost trays and stuff, it would have filled up a lot more space. And obviously, it's fantastic not having any plastic lurking, although the soil blocks are sitting in my chicken thigh trays. Now, the I had to use lollipop sticks for my labels because I realized when I'd got to the point of labeling things, I'd left my packet of labels in the car and it was absolutely honking it down. So I didn't want to run to the car and get wet. So my labeling looks a little bit rubbish. And all the marker pens died. So I had to use biro on my lollipop sticks. But I don't know. It's just, I should have been a little bit better organized, but I was convinced they were in my toolbox. And I also did the whole batching technique, which is where you do one task repeatedly. So you fill all the blocks in one go, and then you do as much seed sowing as you can in one go, and then sort of label in one go. It's not didn't quite work as brilliantly as I thought it would because clearly you want to label something as soon as you put the seed in and wrap the packet up and not have to go back and do it later or you would forget. I would forget. But it's certainly doing getting lots and lots and lots uh, of these soil blocks set up, ready to go on the table, did make seed sowing a lot quicker. But boy, when did seeds get so small? Like, honestly, I don't remember a year like this. I know I have reading glasses, but they're really only to read if the light is poor or if I'm trying to read an article on my phone. Otherwise, I don't need to use reading glasses. But wow, did I have trouble with the seed sowing this afternoon? Like, I just couldn't see them. And also, some of the packets were really quite short on numbers, which I thought was quite interesting. I don't know if this is a new thing as well. Some companies fill by weight, and some say, 50 seeds or approximately 50 seeds. But I think if it says approximately 30 and you only get 20, I think, well, I might just pay you approximately two-thirds of what you're asking me for then because you haven't filled it anywhere near. I don't mind if it's like 3 or 4 under, but I think 10 under is a little bit wrong. So anyway, that is that. And my spreadsheet, once I've done a few more twiddles to it, is going to tell me what I have to do next. Somehow I haven't worked out how to do that yet, but it is going to tell me what I need to do next. So yeah, I feel so much better now. I've actually made a start. It's very exciting going out to the greenhouse and just staring at them. I've taken lots of photos in the event that a mouse gets in there tonight and eats them or just has a massive party and ruins everything, because knowing my luck, that will happen. Anyway, now moving on to part 2 of the episode, it is my plant profile of the week. And this week I'm talking about phlox. Now, I love phlox. I'm talking about the herbaceous perennial one here. It was number 14 on my most profitable list in 2025. My plant actually came from my garden, and it was a really big established clump which I took up onto the plot last year and planted it out. But I can't remember where I actually got it from. It was very popular with my wedding and event florist. And even though it was just one clump, I did manage to sell quite a few stems, which I was very proud of it. And it even had a really late flush in about October, much, much shorter, but still very, very pretty. So this is Phlox paniculata, not the little bedding one, but the really nice tall one. And mine is white. So it originated in North America, specifically the East and the Central Eastern areas, some bits of Canada, and it came into the UK in the 1700s. It found apparently in North America in moist, rich soils on floodplains and rivers. So that gives you an indication of the kind of conditions it's going to like, which is a rich soil and plenty of water as well. They do not like drying out. Now, because it's a herbaceous perennial, it's one of those that will die down to absolutely nothing over the winter and then give you absolute kittens if you either don't label it or you think it's dead and it's not going to come back. Some people leave the stems up, which can be quite helpful as an indication of where it is. They get up to a really nice height, over a meter tall, and they've got very rigid stems, which is one of the things I like about them. So I never needed to stake any of mine, regardless of what conditions they're in. And they've got these really large domed clusters of flowers. It's a bit like a budget hydrangea, if you know what I mean. It's not like an Annabelle, but it's kind of like the next step down from that, I guess. Some of them are scented, and it's just a really, really lovely cottage garden plant. I wish there was more of it because it's so great for like the middle to the back of the border, just to have a bit of height. Now, it's great for growers like me because, as with many perennials, it's one of these plant mulch and kind of forget. It's very, very low maintenance. They last a very long time. You do need to divide them every few years. They get very congested in the middle, and not only does that kind of revitalize them if you split them, but you also get a whole load more plants. Lots of stems per season, and as I said, mine flushed again. And my wedding and event florist, in common with lots of other florists, liked it because it's just a very useful filler. It's very pretty. It's quite soft and floaty. Um, Great vase life, not as expensive as hydrangeas. And one of the things it is supposed to get, which is powdery mildew. Now, apparently, the modern cultivars don't get it so much. And I've never had a problem with powdery mildew. And I think if you keep it in the conditions that it wants to be kept in, it should be very happy. I've even got a couple of plants that are in the shade, not like pitch black shade, but there's a willow over the top of them. And they still flower absolutely beautifully. So, really, really good value for money, those. So I hope that is of interest. Now, I'm going to wish you a wonderful weekend because it's Friday. And I'm sure you're going to be very busy over the weekend with everything. But I do hope you will make the time to come back and listen to the next episode and join me on Tuesday for that, because I always appreciate you being here. So that's it from me. Have a wonderful weekend and all the very best.